Michigan Early Literacy Collaborative, 2015. This module addresses Common Core State Standard L.1.4a. Readers use sentence-level context as a clue to the meaning of a word or phrase. Readers can use sentence-level context as a clue to the meaning of a word. As students learn to read, they need to be taught to use a variety of strategies to help them when they come to an unknown word. Jessica Fries Gaither states, making inferences while reading is a deliberate and purposeful strategy. Research tells us that proficient readers use their own experience as well as the literal text to construct meaning. Yet this process of making inferences is not an intuitive process. Students need explicit instruction and opportunities to practice this meaning-making process. The goal of this language lesson is to develop our students' ability to use a variety of strategies to help them when they come to an unknown word. Students will need to determine the most appropriate meaning of a word for a particular context through the use of various strategies, including asking themselves questions about the text and knowing that other words and the text can give clues to the unknown word. In this lesson, we will use an anchor chart that shows students how to use context clues. A mentor text that is used is The Red-Eyed Tree Frog by Joy Cowley. Students might need a reader's notebook, a Beanie Baby strategy card, and the student assessment. The length of this lesson is approximately 25 minutes. Also included are additional activities for future lessons. Here's the anchor chart referenced in this lesson, as well as the tricky word strategies card and a reader's notebook. Here we will begin the explicit instructional sequence for this lesson. As readers, sometimes we are faced with a word that we don't know. We are now learning ways to help us when we come to those words that we don't know. As we're becoming stronger readers, we are learning ways to help us when we come to a word that we don't know. Today we're going to read The Red-Eyed Tree Frog by Joy Cowley. As I read, you will notice that I have some sticky notes. These will need to be added prior to the lesson. Some of these sticky notes are covering the words. Let's pretend that I don't know these words. I'm going to show you how I use the words around the covered words to help me figure out the covered word. At this point, you would want to introduce the anchor chart to the students. Next is teacher modeling. Model for students using the anchor chart as a tool to review the process of determining meaning by using sentence-level context clues. Begin reading the book, pausing when you come to a sticky note covering a word. Students, watch me as I skip the covered word. Keep reading to the end of the sentence and then come back to the tricky word. Many times the other words in the sentence that I know help me with the tricky words. Now, watch me as I write the tricky word on another sticky note and add it to my chart under the unknown word column. Now I am going to make a guess about the word, about what the word means, and put it under the clues from text column. Finally, I'm going to guess what the word means and add it to the last column. You will repeat this process for a couple more words or until you think your students understand this process. Next is the guided practice part of the lesson. As we read and come to a tricky word, we will repeat this same process that we just practiced, adding our words and guesses to our chart. I'm going to give you each your own sticky notes so you can practice writing down your clues from the other words in the sentences. We are going to go through the same process that I just showed you. I also want you to write this in your notebook to help you remember the process. Your students could write the tricky word clues and guesses in a reader's notebook to keep this new learning process in an easy-to-find place. Now we move on to the active engagement part of the lesson. As a teacher, you've modeled the strategy, and now it's time for the children to practice. At this time, the teacher will watch and listen in as students read their own copy of whatever book you choose. It might be a book from their independent reading book boxes, or a guided reading book that they would all have a copy of. You might say, "Students, now I'm going to watch and listen as you try the process that we just practiced together. As you come to a word that you don't know, write it on a sticky note. Keep reading to the end of the sentence. Make a guess or prediction based on the clues that you were given. Write the clues and your guesses on 2 more sticky notes. Share your sticky notes with a partner. Keep in mind this process may be hard for beginning or struggling readers. You will need to assist as needed and adjust based on student needs and ability levels. Moving on to the link. The link reminds students of what to do during their independent reading time. You will want to review the processes and definitions on the anchor chart. Review the rules for using context clues. You might say, "So readers, now anytime you are reading and you come to a word that you don't know, you will remember to be a word detective and use the clues in the words around the tricky word. Our Skippy Frog strategy will help you remember what we learned." You will want to assess your students' learning during this lesson. The teacher will want to individually orally assess each student on this skill. It is best practice for a teacher to listen to each student read an authentic book or passage in order to assess the skill. If the students are very beginning readers, then the teacher might choose to read the book or short passage aloud. The teacher may want to identify the word or words that will likely be tricky for the students. In this case, teacher lets students know ahead of time the words, has them identified in the book or passage, and then asks for the meaning afterwards. This could be read whole group to save time or individually based on student needs and time available. Then students would use the context clues to determine the meaning of the identified word. Teachers will want to make observations and notes about the student's level of proficiency in using context clues to determine the meaning of the tricky word. Here you see an example of the student and teacher checklist. On the next few slides, you will see a list of resources available for teacher and student. The first ones are available for the teacher to build background knowledge on this standard, followed by links for the student. And don't forget to find ways to integrate this throughout your day. At the end of the slide, you will see a few suggestions. L.1.4a. Readers use sentence-level context clues to determine the meaning of a word.